Script Discussion Season 2, Episode 12. It's been a few weeks. We've had a bit of a break. Before we get into it, real quick, if you're watching live, you'll see in the chat box there's a link to Mythmoot 4 that will be taking place next year.
This year, actually.
This year that we're in now, because now it's January. This year, June 1st to the 4th, big conference. Why don't you tell them about it, Marie? Because I apparently can't remember anything today.
So yeah, Mythmoot 4 will be a conference right outside of DC in June, and it'll be focused on sci-fi stuff. If anyone's interested in submitting a paper to present there, the call for papers is still going on until I think the end of February, so there's still time for that. And if you don't want to present but just want to show up and have fun, that is also an option. You can register. Registration is open. And
all right.
Yeah. Oh, and you can book hotel rooms as well. That's
yes. There are hotel rooms available on site. We have to figure out what we're doing. Because I assume that we're gonna be.
I figured I should remind you that call for papers timeline is by the end of February, and we should maybe try to coordinate something with certain people who run this thing.
Yeah, we should. Awesome. So anyway, the link. If you're watching live, the link is on the side of the chat box. If I can ever get YouTube to allow me to edit video again, it will be in the description down there, and you'll see that there. So anyway, so we got a lot to do in episode 12. Actually, we really don't have that much to do. It's my word.
We have to figure out what to do with episode 12 is what we have.
Yes. So why don't we go through events that need to take place in here?
Okay. Meanwhile, back in Tyrion has to happen because we spent all of episode 11 in Formanos. So that's kind of important, and possibly involves a little bit of stepping back in time, which is everyone's favorite thing. But whatever, we can just start there and catch up. That would also mean we have to kind of reveal what the Valar have been up to, dealing with Melkor being on the run, so to speak. So some of that needs to come out in a non-hokey way. Good luck with that. We have the invitations to the party go out because apparently the Valar throw parties the same way, princes do, which is you send out invitations to the ball and everyone has to show up. But Ianway is going to be delivering that invitation to Feanor with a "you will show up" undertone to it, and therefore everyone at Formanos has to decide what to do about this invitation from them. Obviously, we know Finwë has to stay behind and not has to attend, and there is a long list of people we went through who was going to go, who wasn't going to go, and I probably don't remember all that. So we can send whoever we want to the party and let them veto it later.
Well, they discussed yesterday that they want Nerdanel to be left behind now.
She discussed during the original session.
Yes.
That she would go. So we have to figure that out.
Well, in actuality, in episode 11, the way that we left it off, it makes a lot more sense for her to stay behind than for her to go.
If anything, we can use it as a character moment for her to be like, look, I know I can't stop you, and you're going to do and say all the stupid stuff, so I wash my hands of this situation, is probably where she is right now anyway.
Right, yes. We have put that. So we now don't have to figure out how to get her along now that we've had her kind of given up on her relationship with Feanor.
Sort of. I mean, she's not given up on him, but she's given up on her having any influence over him.
Right.
Like I'm gonna manage this and fix this somehow. She's not like you are on your own, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she's at that point. For the Tyrion stuff, we really do have to finish up anything we wanted to introduce about any of the Noldor. Has to happen by now. Yeah. So there's a few things that we haven't done at all that maybe need to get slipped in there.
Yeah, because episode 13 is getting pretty busy. So why don't we?
Yeah.
What kinds of things?
You can't introduce the character in episode 13, for instance.
No.
So that would be silly. So you have to do it all in 12. So the main person that we need to introduce in 12 is Idril, Turgon's daughter.
Yeah.
She should just be a little kid, no more than like 6, 7 years old, looking. Obviously she's older because she's an elf, but that should be her apparent physical age.
Yeah.
So we have to introduce her, and Tyrion, she's probably not at the party. So if we want to have her running around the party, we could. We can't introduce her there. We'd have to introduce her in a family setting.
Right.
Well, we can figure it out. So we have to introduce her. We have to deal with how Fingolfin and Finarfin's kids are relating to this whole banished Feanorians thing, because none of their reactions was in episode 11. We've only had Feanorians.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to deal with the other half of the family now. And what else needs to happen? I feel like we should introduce Finrod. Finrod Pelegund hasn't really been introduced at all yet.
Okay.
And he's kind of an important brother of Galadriel. But until next season, so he could just be there. We don't need to necessarily have a scene that introduces him. It's kind of, I like him a lot. I think he's really cool. He's going to have more connection to Valinor than most people in Middle-earth, but doesn't mean we need him right now.
He's on the Helcaraxa trip, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm gonna say is maybe have him there in starting in this episode, or like even before, and then we can introduce him as somebody for Galadriel to talk to, as somebody additional for people to talk to on the Helcaraxa trip.
Yeah.
There's a few individuals that we're gonna have a lot more time with then.
Exactly. So the fact that we haven't spent any time with him in Valinor hasn't been a problem.
Right.
The reason to get him now, friend is one of the Vanyar, and won't go with him. On the Helcaraxa. It's nice if we'd at least seen her on screen once before that happens.
Yeah.
See that in flashback. If he's moping around missing somebody, we can do flashbacks to him in Valinor with his girlfriend, and
that's true.
Later.
Yeah.
I feel like she should be at the party. He should be at the party. We don't need to do much with it, but they should be there.
Right. Yes, I agree. Well, we can show them both there, and then
without calling attention.
And then later on have a flashback to them in Valinor together, and people remember. Oh yeah, or maybe they won't. But if they go back and rewatch it, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, there she is."
Exactly. So I kind of feel like that's how we should handle that storyline. They're vaguely present in the background now, as the people can see it but not know what it means and not care about it, and then later it'll make more sense, or have more meaning added later.
So we need to have like a through line to this episode.
Yeah, and that's the issue. Is it's very all over the place and disjointed. We need like Tyrion time, Formanos time, party time.
Right. And so we're tying up a lot of loose ends here. So the question, I feel like the person to go to for our protagonist in this episode, and maybe go back to Dolphin.
He's the one who's going to actually do the most.
Yeah.
As far as grow and change in this episode, to let him be our focus. He has to reconcile with his brother.
Right.
For seemingly no reason. Like, if you're Fingolfin and that's what happened to you, like, why the heck would you be like, you know what, let's just shake hands, let bygones be bygones. I know you didn't really mean to kill me that time.
Right. And
yet that's what he does.
Right. Well, and that's kind of why I felt like it was important to show a scene of Noldor solidarity against the Valar when the Valar were banishing Feanor. But
right. So we need to whoop in this episode.
Right. So we need to do that.
Since we're back in time, Yeah, we can find a way to do that.
Well, I think that the furthest back we can go is to the like the return, like around the time that Fingon is visiting with Maedhros is really the furthest back we can go there.
Because Fingon can come home, and that'll kind of tie the audience into, oh, I know where he was, and yeah.
Right, exactly. So the question is, so the question is, how does Fingolfin feel about Feanor being banished, and does he, and how do we depict that?
Yeah.
Because the impression I get from reading the text is that he feels like the Valar are going too far. Because he says, I released my brother. Because Mandos is like, you can come back in 12 years if you're, if
yeah. Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, if your family releases you, and Fingolf is like, I release him.
Done.
There.
Yeah, like
we're good.
Yeah. Well, if we start out then in Tyrion being kind of in charge because Finwë and Fëanor are both gone.
Right.
And like at the very first time we see him, think like, oh man, he got everything he wanted out of this.
Mm.
And then very slowly disabuse the audience of that notion. He's not happy with how things turned out.
One thing that we could do, we could just we could go whole hog on this whole, the Valar are being heavy-handed thing, and maybe have them doing things in Tyrion.
The Valar, President Tyrion?
Not the Valar themselves, but like the Valar are interfering in the everyday life of Tyrion.
Mm. And they could justify this to themselves by saying, oh, it's our fault that he obviously caused problems in your society and made it all militarized for no reason. Let's step in and fix this.
Yeah, because if they start trying to disarm the Noldor,
yeah, I mean, that's like English Scottish stuff right there. And we know how well that worked out for everyone involved.
The English do not have a good track record with this. They tried to do that with the Americans too, and that didn't work out well there either.
Well, realistically, disarming people is the way to prevent them from rising up against you. Like, it's not like the English weren't doing this for a reason. The problem is people get a little testy when you do that to them, and most people aren't very successfully disarmed.
Right.
Yeah. You just have an underground in arms, and everyone hides them in their thing.
Right. I mean, people are going about it in a much smarter. People are going about it in a much smarter way now. They're making this whole stigma and culture surrounding it. Make people willingly do it for themselves. But anyway.
Well, there's the cultural idea of whether or not you can walk around with a weapon on you.
Right.
Relatively necessary.
Your audio cut out for a minute there.
Oh, I just said if society is seen as a relatively safe, walk around with weapons tied to you all, and modern society, at least an order of magnitude, safe for them.
Yeah. Then in the past.
In the sense that die by homicide these days than they used to.
Right.
I'm saying that sitting in Baltimore, Sydney.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not here. We only have 800,000 people.
Yeah.
So if you have 800,000 people and you're killing one a day, like, okay, there's a problem here. And there is. It's
yeah. Well, I mean, also another thing to think of is that long time ago, before the advent of firearms.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in a city and somebody committed a crime against you, any kind of law enforcement that existed would not only have to be within sight of you, they would have to be like right on top of you in order to do anything about it. Whereas now they don't.
Right.
You know, so if you lived in Middle Ages Europe,
you're kind of on your own to defend.
You might want to be armed in some form or fashion because
yes, exactly.
You know, because if somebody wanted to do something against you,
Eleanor, it's supposed to be super, super safe, like way more than modern society, even modern American society. I realize that European society is maybe, you know, less into the homicide thing than the rest of us are. So Valinor is super safe. No one ever is going to attack or kill anybody there. So the Noldor walking around armed is something the Valar are concerned about, and disarming them does seem to be the reasonable thing to do.
I just thought of something. Rather than having the disarming thing, I feel like that would bring about armed conflict super fast.
Depends how it's done. Australia got people to voluntarily turn in their guns.
Anyway,
they did.
No, they didn't. They were threatened with fines and jail time if they didn't.
Like I said, Australia got people to turn in their guns. I didn't say it was without bloodshed. That was my point. Is that people turning their guns without getting killed over it. No armed conflict.
Okay, so all right, but what if instead? Because I remember bringing up the idea that Fingolfin is having walls built around Tyrion. And so what if we can use this same idea to do two things. If we have one of the Valar or the Ainur in general talking to Fingolfin, like basically coming to him and saying, look, you don't need to build these walls. Like, what are you doing building walls? Who are you trying, you know, like, why are you trying to keep us out? What are you trying to, you know, and he brings up the fact that you figured out, you know, wasn't Melkor behind all that stuff that went on before? Isn't he running from you guys right now? You know, it gives us an opportunity to say these things, and we're saying these things to prove a point, not because we're just talking
the audience
about
needs to know.
Right, exactly.
Right. And that's the key, is if you're going to use dialogue for exposition, it really has to, the characters themselves have to have a reason to talk about it. So,
well, according to Professor
the current discussion of the wall,
talking about it isn't exposition, but I said according to Professor Olson, the characters talking about it isn't exposition, but I don't know. I don't know.
Perhaps that was shorthand for something else, but fits the story, and therefore it's not just exposition.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So we can do that.
Okay.
Perhaps we can we open up with that?
Tyrion. That needs to be the only be to start with Melkor. Episode by standing on the pillar.
Right.